Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on what is right now here where I am a lovely, sunny, chilly kind of springy evening. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's Mary Cronert, and if you haven't joined one of us before in a live stream, uh, welcome to the living room. I'm here on behalf of the Living Room Community Art Studio, bringing you a live stream art hive that you can participate in, create along with, use to inspire you or to entertain you or to just, do whatever you need to do, just like you might if you were in the actual physical storefront studio space or with us out in the community at a mobile art hive event. It's good to have you here. Hello, everybody. Aha, hello, Ashley and Wendy. Hello, everybody. Now, as you see, I'm chatting with folks in the comment section. If you would like to join in the community conversation, let me know what you're working on. If you're, maybe you have questions for the community members about projects or things you're troubleshooting, things you're excited about or inspired by, put it in the chat and then I'll see it and I can say hi and we can continue that creative conversation and that community building along the way. That being said, if you just want to have this time for yourself or you want to work on what you're doing and not have to worry about typing anything in, that's okay too. You just do you. Wherever you are, you can be quiet and just take this time to appreciate, to absorb the energy. You're still contributing no matter where you are or how you're engaging with us. We know you're there. And of course, if you're watching this once it has been archived, hello to you too. You count and you're a part of our community as well. It's so great to have you here, especially on a night where the theme is, what is the theme again? I think it's what I need to care for. I should know that, right? But I think the fact that I'm having a hard time remembering the theme we chose just goes to show that these are some hectic days we're having. There's a lot going on in the community for so many of us here. So when I ask that question of myself and of you, well, what do we need to care for? What do we need to care for? That's a really interesting question. And I think it's one that, oh, there's so many different ways to interpret it. And there's so many different things that come to mind. You know what? I'm looking to having a conversation with you about that tonight. Let me know in the chat what you need to care for. And of course, how are we going to be exploring this? Well, for me, I'm going to be using collage. So that was a suggestion from one of our community members that went into the so-called living room hat. Every week I draw out a new suggestion of an activity or a technique or an approach to something, and then I draw a theme to go along with it. So this week we're collaging as we reflect upon and explore what I need to care for. Yeah? Shall we jump right in and start this conversation creatively? Hey, Farah, nice to see you again. Okay. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Oh, hello, scissors. I'm going to put you away for now. So, again, house rules, I was going to say living room rules. They're not so much rules as guidelines. You take care of you, as always. Do what you need to do. Just because I'm collaging, you don't have to. Oops. That's what Margaret would call a tiny little crapalange. I've got a lot on my desk, a lot on my plate in life, and a lot on my desk. We'll just place those over here. Yeah, you saw some stencils. You maybe saw some stencils. I might be creating some collage papers with those stencils. Maybe. We shall see. Yeah, so take care of yourself tonight. Do what you need to do. You don't have to collage. You can do whatever feels right for you. And of course, when we talk about collage, that can mean so many different things, right? It could mean what we think of when we think of collecting images and cutting images out of magazines or patterns and shapes out of paper, but it could also be doing something digital, photo collages. It might be making fabric collages. Someone in the Zoom this week reminded me that quilts are a kind of collage. And depending on how you assemble and what goes into those pieces, every quilt has a different kind of meaning and communicates something very specific to that creator. So again, there are so many different types of collage out there. If you're working with something that you feel is collage that might be a little non-traditional, let me know. I'd like to hear about it. And Ashley saying, jelly print with stencil. You know what? I'm not going to pull out the jelly plate tonight because there's enough mess on this desk as it is. I'm going to instead repurpose some papers that I have and add more color to them. So let's see. Let's do a little bit of that right now. or return to one of my old favorites. Again, I have all of these papers here, these coffee filter bingo dabber prints. I use a bingo dabber just because it's really easy and fast, and I've got lots on hand. You might use inks or even markers. If you have a paper that's absorbent enough, and if you add a little bit of water, it might spread that color out, create really interesting patterns. Oh, oh, there might be some controversy on the stream. For those of you who were with us last stream, there was a question about a certain movie, How to Train Your Dragon 3. I'm so sorry I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but you know what? You know what, Bean? And I think this question might be coming from Bean and Laura. I would love to watch it this weekend. I have a little bit of time for some movie watching and some folks in my life who might also be interested in watching this again. And you know what? It's time. So there you go. And then we will have a fabulous conversation about it. So there you go. Sometimes, folks, we talk about movies. Sometimes we talk about the things that are bringing us joy. It's not always what you think. It's not always things we make. Sometimes it's what we appreciate and what we absorb in the world. Oh, and in the chat, I just see you need to heart. Okay, this is exciting. I think there's room for film, like any kind of art, is a type of storytelling, isn't it? And when we talk about Art Hive Led, we do talk about creative conversations. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe we can. I always look for ways to involve film because it's not necessarily an easy way to introduce art to everyone in the space, but everyone loves movies. So maybe there's a way we can talk about film. And I'm thinking about it. I'm working on it. Don't you? I'm working on it. I promise. And and hello to Laura as well, Emily. Been pointing out that their mom wants to say hi. I say hi right back. And Laura, for folks who used to come to the studio, of course, a prolific collager, such fantastic technique, imagination, can turn simple images that you think are straightforward into fantastic creations of pattern and texture and color, breaking down the images into a kind of mosaic form to tell new stories and bring new life to images, which of course is one of those conversations in collage about how do we credit the source. Sometimes it might be something that belongs or seems like it belongs to everyone, but oftentimes, especially myself, I find myself drawn to images that are created by other artists. So trying to be mindful of how I use those images and the work that I do and what I do with the work that I create if it does focus heavily on one of those images. Just another conversation to be had. Oops, I want to add a little bit more of this. And maybe some green. And then I'll spray, I'll set aside and let this dry. Hopefully quick enough that I can use it in the piece tonight. Instead of the spray bottle, I'm going to use just some water to dilute the images. Although it's not nearly as much fun as just spraying the heck out of a coffee filter and watching the colors. Oops. Oh, 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 guess what I just did? Oh no. All right, T, I'm going to, okay, T goes over here. That's twice in 1 year. My goodness, what's happening to me? Oh my goodness. And then I have another hello on the line from, hi, it's Emily's friend. Hello, Emily's friend. It's so nice to meet you through the live stream. What are you making tonight? And again, not that you have to be making any art, but if you were making art, what would it be? What kind of art, what kind of creative humaning are you doing tonight? Inquiring minds want to know. And that goes for everyone else on the chat. If you have something that you're working on, something that you're, trying out, experimenting with, let me know. Of course, I'm not the boss of you. You don't have to tell me anything. I'm curious. So, oh, and just catching up on some of the chat there. Ashley saying, just kind of speaking of mess, Ashley says, never had enough mess. Is never a mess on your desk? Well, oh my goodness. And yeah, I know my tea is now officially paint water, but I think the ratio is still okay for me to drink, so I'm just gonna do that. Yeah, it tastes fine. Yeah, it's fine. I know how many other folks, hello, Heart That User. People out there, you know what I'm talking about. Everyone here has dipped the paintbrush in the water you're drinking, or your tea, or your coffee at least once in your creative lifetime. I know I'm not the only one. Now, what do I want to do with this? I had some really, last week when I was working, I was painting on the glassine paper and I really enjoyed it. It gave a really interesting texture to the collage I was working on in the Zoom group this week that I posted on Facebook earlier and on the Insta earlier today. I just, again, when I laid it onto white, paper, some of it just disappeared. It dissolved. So I really enjoyed that effect. Oh, okay. And so we're hearing from some folks. I think Emily's friend and maybe Laura and maybe Emily that you don't know what you're working on yet. Interesting. And I love how people in the chat, Ashley, you make me laugh. Calling on Anthony to bring me a new tea. Goodness knows. If I Anthony does enough. He doesn't need to bring me tea. My goodness. Although he has in the past. I do appreciate that, Anthony, so much. That's for when we get those really big living room bucks, right? We just have assistants everywhere who can just jump in and wipe down tables, pick up the things I drop. And basically, what I'm looking for is to fund a personal assistant slash housekeeper. And that's not realistic, is it? But it does link back to the theme when we talk about things like what I need to care for. One of the things I think I need to care for more. Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. On the glassine paper, bingo dabbers don't blur or blend up. Interesting creative discovery. What I need to care for, one of the things, and I don't know if anyone else is out there, but I need to care for my space a little bit. It's time to tidy, it's time to organize, to get back into some kind of order that I can make use of that can help me feel good. That's definitely on the list. So I might joke about the personal assistant, but oh my goodness, I feel for them. They're imaginary. They're not even real, and I feel for them already. Let's see. And Farah says, tonight I'm not doing art, but I'm trying to come up with classes and workshop ideas. I'm doing a lot of thinking and planning. Oh, do tell Farah, where will you be teaching classes this summer? I'm assuming summer. It could be right now that you're doing the classes. Do a little plug, a little promo for that if you want. Again, not the boss of you. And Heart That User with a big, is that a dragon emoji? Oh, wow. Is it, or is it a dinosaur? Or just a Muppet? I feel like a bit of a Muppet tonight. And the paintbrush acts like it belongs in that tea. You just made me double check and make sure that the tea and the water are now separate enough. Okay, that's good. Opposite ends of the table. Let's see if I don't knock my tea right off the table now that it's in a new place. It is a busy time. Now for some of us, maybe some of us might be heading into what we like to call here as a long weekend, where we actually have a little more time to take care of ourselves. Not everyone does, not everyone has the luxury or the privilege of not working. Um, but for those of us who do have a little break, we'll have an opportunity to take more time to care for ourselves. Um, and well, that's not even answering the question. So here's the other interesting thing that came up: what I need to care for as the theme, at least in this week's Zoom, in our conversations and our creating around it. And I thank everyone who shows up and contributes to that kind of that creative space, that art hive space, because it feeds into everything else we do here. Where did I put the stencils? Here we go. Um, what we ended up discovering, stumbling upon as we were going through, because it seemed like at first when we asked ourselves that question, it's a laundry list. What I need to care for It's quite literally, what do I need to take care of? Not necessarily tend to in a nurturing way, or, you know, it was just really, really, what's happening? Where are you? Oh, there we are. There we are. What we ended up doing was creating a giant to-do list of all the things we maybe feel we're neglecting, or basically feeling guilty about not paying enough attention to, or not being able to keep on top of, which was fascinating. And it was really only towards the end of the Zoom where we all had this collective realization of, oh my gosh, we're not on the list. We're not on the list of what we need to care for. And then that's when that resounding us, me, came into the question. And I'm wondering how many of you out there feel that way too. Maybe not so much for the younger listeners, although I'd like to hear from you as well. What do you think of when you hear the question, what do I need to care for? Right? There were a few things on the lists, like pets made into it, like pets. That was a huge part of it because we recognized how pets and fur family give so much to us without asking hardly anything at all. So things like that about, it's easy to care for things that we love. It's easy to care. It's easy to want to care for the things that give back to us. But do we prioritize ourselves on that list? I don't know. And then Ashley saying, at least you didn't drink the paint water. Don't tempt me. It's now where my mug used to be. Ashley, that might still happen. It might still happen. There's a reason why I keep all my paint water in jars now instead of mugs. I did use mugs once upon a time and water glasses. I don't know if I recommend it entirely for that very reason. So that's an interesting effect that bled through. I'm wondering what if, I'm just going to clean this off by smushing it around on the glassine. I'm going to get back to painting this a little bit more. And then I promise I'll get into some collage. I promise. I pulled out my collage files and everything. I even found a few collage files when I started cleaning. And so for those of you folks who've watched other live streams, you know that I tend to tear images out of magazines or old books or whatever it might be. Any images or words or textures of paper that seem interesting to me, and I can't use them right away, or if I'm worried about losing them, I'll stash them. I'll tear them out and I'll stash them. And turns out I have 3 big folders, big files here of different kinds of images and different kinds of paper. Okay, and returning to Farah. Oh, Farah is teaching at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery. Yes, excellent. Oh, interesting. In Baby's Basement in Oshawa, which is a fantastic, fantastic thrift store that I dropped by today. It's a little too early. I think it wasn't open yet. And I was so sad because, well, you know what? I can go back. I can go back. But I was walking by, I was in the neighborhood, and I was so excited because I thought, oh, finally, I'm going to have a chance to go to their new location. But I was just a little bit too early. Uh, but yes, Farah is teaching at the Robert McLaughlin, also known as the RMG for folks who aren't familiar with Durham region. And Baby's Basement in Oshawa wants to have more events, and Farah offered to do some art projects there. And East End Arts just put out an instructor call. Hoo hoo hoo, folks. If you are interested, jump on that. Although Farah, it sounds like you're going to jump on that, so maybe I shouldn't be encouraging people to apply. This is the season, I think, from this point forward, we're going to see a lot more calls being put out for instructors, for people to support programming that's happening this summer. It's an exciting time to see what's going on. And I think that must be everywhere. It can't just be here in Durham region. So if you're looking for that kind of creative employment and industry, keep an eye out, folks. It's there. And again, that doesn't take us too far away from our theme tonight, does it? What we need to care for, because I think sometimes just being open to the possibilities that are out there, the potential that's out there awaiting us, which might result in employment, something that feeds our soul as well as our pocketbooks, not such a bad idea. And it can happen. And Farah's saying, I need to care for myself for sure. I'm working on it. My friends will remind me to take care of myself, which is helpful. Thank goodness for friends. There's a few folks, even in this live stream, who remind me from time to time, slow down, take breaks. And in fact, next week, I will be taking a break from the live streams takes a lot for me to consider doing that. I tell you, especially when I get into the groove, and I do appreciate being here with everyone so, so much. But I do need to do some spring cleaning around here and getting the bus ready to go out on the road again. We've just finished a few beautiful big projects with Ontario Tech U and Durham College. Well, we've got one more day coming up next week with Durham College. But as a result, the bus is just a bit of a disaster, all packed away in boxes and baskets and bags and things like on shelves, but still, I don't quite remember what's there. And whenever it gets to a point where I can't see everything, when I can't easily remember what's available to me, that's a sign. And I know some folks out there can relate. Anyone who collects creative things or who is interested in, oh, like just the lovely little bits and pieces of life. We collect supplies. Everything is a potential supply. So yeah, taking a break next week, just a heads up, but we'll be back the following week. And Ashley, oh, so Ashley, lovely. This is something else I love seeing happen in the live stream chats. People in the community asking one another questions. And there's just a question from Ash about how do you get involved in that or hired for stuff like that? It's a really good discussion. And here, let's see, Farah, if you don't mind, I'm going to share this response. So Farah saying everyone should apply to everything. But yes, I follow tons of people on Instagram. Even the city of Pickering put out a call for public art. I think just start following organizations bit by bit. And I think on top of that, I love what you said right off the top. And this applies to so many people, everyone, everywhere, no matter where you are. Maybe some of our friends who are like living in the States or watching over from overseas, even the more you build relationships in the community, and that can come from the smallest and simplest of things like, participating in things like this and live streams and learning about the organizations that are out there and what they offer and what they're looking for, going out to events when you can, participating in events when you can, learning about what you still need to learn. And so you can build your skills. And I know there's people here, I know you're doing that all the time. But I think so much of the work we do and the opportunities that we end up being able to take advantage of, most often they come from building relationships. It's not so much that old, I think there's that really old, that phrasing, oh, it's who you know, not what you know. I think that's a really cynical way of looking at things, although sometimes it feels very true. Um, but I think I sometimes have to reframe that for myself, that it's not so much who you know, not what you know. It's the relationships that you've invested time in. And being able to really look at it and say, well, what do I want to get out of this? And what will I be able to offer? And getting excited about that. And when you have some kind of relationship with the people on the other end who are just humans, just like you or me, we're all the same, it makes it easier to approach them and it makes it easier to apply. All the jobs I've ever applied to where it's been a faceless, nameless entity, someone I don't know, or an organization, and I don't know if I've ever gotten any of those jobs. I think when I take time to learn about the world I'm stepping into or learn more about the world I'm a part of, even though sometimes that can be so scary, it always pays off. It always, always pays off. That's what I can say. Rant over. But another form of self care. I think that's a form of self care, discovering what you love and pursuing that. And bit by bit, you'll collect all the pieces that come together to help you move through that world. You can almost build your own path by laying the pieces down in front of yourself as you go. I don't know. If anyone disagrees, agree. If you have thoughts or feelings, you can add them into the mix. But I think so many of us are at a point in our lives where we are ready. We're ready for, I don't know, for a change. We want to do something that we love and to earn an income from that, or even, just to earn money to help us get by. And for the younger people out there, not making any assumptions, I don't know. Emily, do you have a full-time job yet? I think there's still, I think you're never too young to really follow that spark, the thing that you love, to learn more about it. I think you're never too young. You're never too old either. But that's a large part of it is recognizing that we're all the same. We're all in the same boat. We're all just human. And you never know unless you ask. That's one of the things I've learned through grant writing. You just never know unless you ask. And it's okay to ask. What does it do when I do that? Oh, interesting. New, different shapes of things. So playing with stencils in this, it does, yeah, it does. Acrylic paint seems to way to go so far with these kind of stencils, not so much the inks, but I am going to blur it anyways. So I know what I want to do. I have to be careful with these because I can be, it's, I have so much fun making these surfaces that I'm never going to get around to the collage part of it. And I think it's important that I get around to the collage element of it. So let me do this. And let me build up some of this color over here with this. Boop, 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 boop. And I think too, there are lots of folks out there who are going to be offering, like every time, if you see, again, there are courses and there are lectures, and I think people are becoming more mindful of just how we can offering more programming around how do I do this thing? How do I, you know, how do I learn to advocate for myself and move into these like these worlds and these industries? Don't like that word, but it can feel that way for the uninitiated. How do we move through those worlds with more confidence, learning what we need, and not feeling bad when we don't have what they need, because there's something out there for everyone, I think. Well, that's interesting. Oh, I really like that color. Ooh. You can't really see it through there, but you know what? I'll work it in. Oh, that's interesting. So yes, Farah agrees with me. Yay. And Farah's saying, I used to recommend folks to volunteer a ton, but not many people can afford to volunteer. It is a privilege. And yeah, I agree with that too. And a lot of the time when we volunteer, not all the time. I mean, the living room, we hire a lot of our volunteers. I, we always look for opportunities to do that with the people we work with. We are not always able to, depending on what our needs are again, but when we do have the funds to do that, we love that because our volunteers are a part of what we do. Not every organization can do that, though. They don't always have the structure or the ability. So if you find something that you love, being able to, yeah, to know when do I choose to focus and move it with greater intention in a very specific direction, which sometimes has to do with creating healthy boundaries and being okay with communicating those boundaries too. But goodness, this is turning into a different kind of live stream, isn't it? Well, self-care is about boundaries, isn't it? It is about knowing who you are and where you want to go, where you're not prepared to go right now, recognizing where you're at and where you might be in the future and knowing that that's okay. Oh, interesting. So Laura's Emily is still in the middle. Can you remind me? Can you remind me what that is about? What does that mean? Emily is still in the middle. Oh, middle school. Middle school. Okay, I'm coming. This is coming in slow to Mary's brain tonight. So you don't have a full-time job? Okay, all right. You do you. And let's see. I was just teasing. I was totally teasing. I was totally teasing. Totally teasing. Middle school, you don't need a job in middle school unless you want to become a miner or perhaps work in uh like a cotton mill, bringing back old school child labor. Not good. I'm just joking again. Just joking. Just joking. And there are lots of purple hearts from Ashley there, which is lovely. And Laura saying, I am making cat toys, selling some and also donating some to the cat cafe. Toe Beans. Shout out to Toe Beans Cat Cafe. And Laura gave a bunch of cat toys to the shelter here in town. That is lovely. Oh, and Ashley's saying, and I agree, Laura, you have such a large heart. I can second and third that. That is absolutely true. One of the biggest hearts out there. And I saw Fascinator on the line here too. Hello. How are you doing? What have I got in this file? So unless I stay here all night going through all of these images with you, let's see if I can untangle all the little elastic bits. Some of the things, some of the images, I'm just going to start throwing some of them down. Let me fold this up for now. Some of the images that keep popping up and recurring. What do I feel like? Oh, maybe something from here. This really interesting thing has been happening to me lately and you've witnessed this before, I think. When I have an interesting piece in one live stream and I say, oh, I'm going to use this for sure in the next activity I do, it goes walkabout. It's like it hides itself from me because it's teasing me to be spontaneous. And a lot of folks shouting out and sending the love to Laura for doing that good work. Oh, 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 no, not today. Back in the file with you. Back in the file with you. No scary face. And I know a lot of shelters are looking for things these days. I heard that this might be just one of those times of years where there are a lot of animals coming in. And so it's never a bad thing if you have a local animal shelter you want to support. Or like Laura, you're lucky enough to have a cat cafe somewhere close by. What do I feel like here? Just throwing down some images that are jumping out at me, different bits and pieces. I'm not going to choose too many because I'm going to be using different kinds of paper. Again, I go through these phases of using just magazine pictures, but other times I think I really like the idea of creating our own collage papers and then making shapes with those papers, creating stories with those new surfaces we're creating. Oh, and a fascinator saying, "Oh, nice, just great, just eating breakfast." Okay. And saying, I hopped in. Oh, oh, okay, okay. Basically, so fascinator just saying, I agree with that comment above about what Farah said. Absolutely, right? Getting to know organizations, volunteering, becoming familiar with the routines of things, I think, the world, having you build up a shorthand of vocabulary, as well as we build our confidence when we step out to volunteer or to get to know people. And it's, yeah, scary at first, but we're all humans and we all learn about one another along the way. And the daisies, oh, Laura's saying the daisies are speaking. They're fabulous. Yes. So maybe I'll use one of those. Do I want a daisy tiger? Oh, wait, but what? Speaking of things I lost, but are, no, have I lost it again? Oh, no. So this, I remember, oops, stay there. I lost this a few weeks ago, but it popped up again. So maybe that's a sign? Little kitty cat there. Oh, interesting. So Fascinator saying no scary face, that scary, lovely statue that I put away, but you could use it as your avatar instead. Me? Yeah, I suppose I could. I could use that as my avatar. Or you could use it as your avatar. Well, I'll send it your way. And tiger, getting Ashley saying tiger. Ah, so the tiger is resonating, the tiger emerging from the shadows. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of power in this image. Okay, so now is the time I begin to assemble and arrange and see what's here and what wants to be here. Now I do have some old jelly plate tissue papers that I made that I put aside. And I think I do want to play with light and dark and building up different transparencies. And this little cat face. Yeah, that's a cute cat face. Little kitty cat face off here. Maybe, maybe not. Again, these are things too. If I don't use them tonight, I put them aside and I use them later on. But this, again, this collage is inspired by what I need to care for. So what do I need to care for, and how will it reveal itself in this collage? I think I want to try a frame again. So, uh, with and just hearing the phrases come back at me with the daisies. Laura loves the dailies, but Laura reminds me I'm not the boss of you. Phrase I kind of really love. And Fascinator saying I used to have scary and oh wow, I used to have scary and weird faces as my avatar for memes and lulls, hoping someone would react to it, or even funny ones. Did no one ever react to it? I guess it's one of the things on like in online world, it's hard to know how to take sometimes. And I think it's not necessarily a bad thing that no one reacted to it. But I love that you were baiting just a little bit. You were saying, "Come on, come at me just a little bit." In my world, I got to be careful with that stuff. I think got to be prepared to pay for what my mouth buys, but also what I post. I think I'm one of those people who goes over it above and beyond and trying to explain and justify and anticipate how people might respond because I want everyone to be okay. But I think there's a part of me, a trickstery part of me, that would just love to shock the pants off people. Who knows, one day, still might happen. Every once in a while, poking a little bit of rupture, which again is a self-care measure. Sometimes that's the one way we can break free of something sometime by not having to worry about what other people think, by recognizing that we don't have to, that it's not our job to care all the time about what other people think, as long as we're not hurting or intentionally hurting, as long as we are prepared to deal with the consequences. I think freeing ourselves from having to have that concern all the time, because that can be a big burden. That can be a big, heavy weight to carry around. Speaking from experience here, of course. And I think that's one of the art hive, one of those things in the art hive we talk about, at least in the living room art hive, with everyone we work with, volunteers, especially your staff, that idea of being transparent and being able to own your own feelings so that you can walk honestly through the world, having being able to be spontaneous and have fun and not worry so much. But also recognizing that, yeah, there'll be times for awkward conversations and apologizing and explaining and sometimes holding your ground and accepting that things might not always match up, that it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to disagree and to own one's differences. All right, let's see. Whoa, 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 whoa. And Fascinator coming back with an update about all the flight simulator things. Get an install of progress indicator in the form of an altimeter. This is again this creativity that is astonishing to me. Is a whole other world. You know what? Here's a question for everyone, including you, Fascinator. Again, returning to this question of what I need to care for. How do the things we love, or the things that we do, how do they, or do they at all, feed into this process of caring? And what do they care to for in your life? What do they tend to? Are we lucky enough to have hobbies or roles or jobs or positions or people around us that help remind us, help us, not even just remind us, but actually help do the caring for us and the things we need to care for? And I'd like to believe that all of us need to understand or need to have something in our life that cares for us. Sometimes it's an animal, sometimes it's a friend. But isn't it great when it can be ourselves, when we can love ourselves, honor ourselves for caring for ourselves? Does that make sense? Care for, care for, care for. Now I feel like I'm speed collaging. This might be a case, folks, of again assembling and then sticking down later on to do a reveal once the live stream is complete. But the picture for me is beginning to come together. with what I've drawn out here. Of course, plants was another thing. That was another theme that came out where we care for plants and we need to care for plants in our lives. Plants that we have, our gardens, the world, environmentally speaking, all important things that need to be tended to. All things that give back to us too and help us take care of ourselves. And let's see. And Ashley saying, not the boss of you, it's your art. Yeah, I know it is. And Farah says, I like the theme of tonight. Oh, I'm glad. The theme being what I need to care for. And if you can break away, even just for a little bit, from the laundry list that comes into our head when we think about all the things we have to care for. Sometimes we care for things, we have to care for things that we don't necessarily care about. I think some jobs are like that. We find a way to care about the jobs we do, and we actually do care about them, but it's not necessarily because, or maybe it is because we need to care about it, but we don't necessarily want to have to care about it. I was reminded today of caring all the caring that I still needed to do for myself, but not the self I am now, the self I was in the past that helped me get here. So that's I was going into that place of caring for that inner child, right? Or the artist that survived. The child that survived is what is that phrase? There's this one of you will know it out there. There's a fantastic quote. The child that survived. Oh, I will find it. I will find it. I will post it. But there's something about how we survive, how we move through the world, get to the points we are right now, resilient, creative, ridiculous, beautiful, imperfect. And that comes from a past self that worked really hard to be here somehow in some way. And I think for me, part of my journey, and maybe some of the caring I'll be doing this weekend when I have a little bit of time, will be just revisiting that and saying thank you and finding a way to care for that past self that helped get me to where I am today. There's a little bit of deepness for you. How's that? And let's see. Fascinator said, talking about the avatars, which is fun and in a really fun way of rupturing the normal, rupturing the everyday to evoke a response, perhaps, but also to have fun. Oy, oy, oy. And I can see why you got a response. So the most recent being a picture of Taco from putting on the Ritz. So I think I need to revisit that image and see what that's about. I don't know. I can't immediately conjure it. Someone out there might be able to. Let's see. And also well, so the things that you care for that help. Fascinator saying they are related to your long time interest, which is aviation, flight. What a brilliant and beautiful thing. Yeah, I can see that. And I love everything that's tied into the idea of flight in that sense, being able to give ourselves flight or to help someone else take to flight. There's a freedom in that, isn't there? Something really glamorous and not even glamorous. No, that's not the right thing, but just glorious. I think glorious. Hmm. So flight simulator stuff is as close as you can get to your interest in the meantime. Desires can also open you up to new adventures, says Fascinator. 3D modeling airplanes, or even getting to grips with XML coding. Again, look at these brilliant people we have as a part of this live stream, the different forms of creative self-care that go on. And yeah, it is caring for self, isn't it? To dedicate time to our passions. And it's a way of caring for ourselves. So when we ask ourselves, what do I need to care for? When we care for the things we love doing, when we give invest attention in those things lovingly. I think we are caring for ourselves, aren't we? It's just a part of that fantastic process. And for me, the gardening, it's interesting that a lot of the images I'm pulling have to do with there's flowers, there's nature, there's animals. Not sure how those cats are going to fit into this. We're going to figure it out. Maybe not tonight. During the live stream, that is. But let me get the ingredients ready so I can show you. And let me arrange some things here on paper so I can show you what it might be. I'm just going to do a rough and ready cutout of these flowers. Because I'm thinking what I want is for these flowers, for this life, I'm feeling this pull to having them explode beyond the frame, maybe radiate beyond the frame, maybe burst into even greater color, right? And there's a strongly agree from Fascinator. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad. I mean, people are welcome to disagree with me as well. Maybe, and there might be folks out there who think, you know what? This what do I need to care for stuff is nonsense. You're welcome here too. You are welcome here too. I think that kind of difference, that kind of dialogue of difference makes life really interesting and exciting. All right. So I don't know if I need the vase on the bottom of that. Where's my daisy? I think some of this can happen. And look at me as I begin talking in strange abstract terms. Some of this, some of that. And cutting out shapes. Oh, what a glorious mess I'm making of my desk tonight. Oh, we never got around to really asking if what were people working on tonight? Or is there anyone else out there doing collage? We heard some people dreaming and scheming creative plans. Looking at you, Farah. Are there any quilters out there? Is there anyone who's creating something a little more abstract or realistic? Let's see. Is this frame working for me? Is this frame working for me? Let's have a little close up and see. I think so. What would happen if, let's see, the magical what if. Let's see in the last few minutes we have, let's see what happens if I want something. Do I want something dark? Hmm. I do love that dark, the intenseness of that blue coming through, but what happens? Again, if, not if. Oh, maybe I like that a little bit better. Just layering over some darker kind of colors, and then maybe something in back of here. Maybe another daisy. Let's add some more daisies. I think I'm going to be digging through some gardening catalogs over this next little while. So let me just do a really quick cutout of this just to see where it's at. And if this works or not. The picture I lost, something of this little kitty cat here, who might make it into this collage actually. We'll see. It was a beautiful big picture of a sunflower. And I find it's just really funny that it went walkabout tonight. I love how art does that. Kind of pushes you out of that comfort zone just when you think you've got an idea and things are going to run smoothly. It's like, no, no, we're going to throw you back into that spontaneity pond because that's when the exciting things really happen. I think too much red here. Maybe there's something to do with that. Maybe. Let's see. And just we're coming back to interests and things that help us, remind us of what we need to care for. And that idea of flight for Fascinator and everything related to it. Yeah, it's such an important thing. And oh, you know what, Farah, giving me a little encouragement there. Thank you. The art is coming together. It's always interesting to see what happens when you get out of your own way here and just start with a little art sprint. I think I need more darkness. A strange phrase to say, but I think I need more darkness. So, let's see. Let me grab another piece of paper here. Let me just throw. I have lots of color. There's no shortage of color. What I need is a little contrast. What I need here is a little storminess to help make this colorful life really mean something, I suppose. So I'm going to open up those watercolors once again. I'm going to tuck some of this down here. And just, you know me, folks, it's making room for the mess. It's making room for letting the messiness speak. And Heart That User is saying, I'm trying to make some collage trading cards. Yes. So when you say trading cards, are we talking soul collage? Are we talking a specific genre of trading cards? Soul collage or my own sort of untrademarked version? Because I'm a really lazy kind of creator over here. As if you couldn't tell, going by feel and seeing what can be done. I love a good collage card, a soul card, an inspiration deck, whatever. There's so many different things. And a lot of the cards that were created for our self-care deck that we worked with the Ontario Tech U students, a lot of them were collaged. And I know Wendy had a few. Wendy, another fantastic collager out there in the community. Shout out to Wendy, who I believe might still be here. Another fantastic collager who, yeah, if Laura and Wendy got together to make some collage, that would be astonishing. Anyways, getting lost. I would love to know more about your collage cards and if they're a part of something. And Vara's saying collage trading cards sounds so fun. What kinds of images or elements have you been using? I'm curious about that as well. Always interesting to learn about what other artists' collage techniques are. Do you just go for the first image you see that it resonates with you, or are you being a little more purposeful and seeking things out? I collect images when I'm doing more soul collage for me, it's what's jumping out. I try not to judge. That's what I try not to judge as the images are revealing themselves. And I make space for them one way or another. And sometimes you can have some really beautiful and intense and scary pieces. Sometimes scary, I think that's a good word. And they cause me to step back and take another look and reflect a little bit about what's being said. And usually I don't have that opportunity until they're done. I try to wait until the collage is complete before having a conversation with it. That's a really interesting part of the creative process, trying not to judge our work as it's emerging, trying not to judge while something is in process. I'm not alone in that. I think Sister Karita Kent, or Karita as she later liked to be referred to in life, that was one of her 12 rules for artists. And the class that she taught was not to judge your work while it was in process. You can't create and assess at the same time. And that is true. Fascinator, dropping, lovely. This idea of flight and movement and even a flight simulator. But I love the connection with art. Art can take you places. It can give you wings. Similar to Red Bull. Was that just one of those commercials? I didn't mean to do that. And heard that user explaining a little bit more. I got a lot of paper and stickers that I want to use up. So I'll see where that leads me. Fantastic. Loving it. And Farah also, yes, loving the stickers. And that sounds very cool. Mm. And I love this too. Heart That User, I have a lot of empty flashcards. So I was thinking of using them because as much as I love making mini collages on playing cards, I need a slightly bigger canvas. Oh, Farah's going to hop off for tonight. Thank you, Farah. But wishes sure to catch the end of the stream when it's archived. Saying goodbye to everyone. Nice chat. And thank you for letting me chat arts instructor things, Farah says. And have a lovely Easter weekend. Yes, right back at you. And anyone who needs to hop off right now, it is nearing the end. And anyone who knows me or who's worked with me in any of the Zooms or live streams, you know I'm a horrible timekeeper. And I do not mind going over for something that I'm enjoying. If I'm not enjoying it, I'm going to try and finish it as soon as possible. That's not true either. But I do tend to lose myself in the creative process, which is not a bad thing. But if you need to go, if you need to do that thing, feel free and give yourself that break. All right, so let's again arrange some of these pieces here. Just going to layer up some of the torn pieces to see what kind of look I get. This one's a little wet, so it's tearing in a really interesting way. Not a bad thing at all. And again, I might not get to gluing this down, but I want to see what happens. So let's see if I make this my initial background and filling up the page around it with that. So there's some interesting texture happening there. I'm going to tear up some of this. I love the idea that you're looking to use a larger canvas. I think it's a nice challenge every once in a while if we become too, and this is me speaking for myself, but as we become a little too comfortable with one size, it's great to break out of that. Usually I make my collages on, I guess like a 4x7 maybe. And because I make cards with them, I like having them as a part of my deck, my collage deck. Um, and the spirit of, that kind of soul collagey. Do I want this here? Do I want this here? Do I want this here? No, I think it's got to be here, but maybe it's here. And this is where the fun comes in, where I start, again, talking to myself. Welcome to the end, the wrapping up of a live stream. But it's also the place where I become a bit more rambly. But it's so important to challenge ourselves and break out and look at different, what we can do with different sizes and different scopes, different mediums. I think it's really easy to become too comfortable with working in one way, and I'm guilty of that. So opportunities to break out. And speaking of breaking out, I think this will be, oh, I'm having the impulse to tear this in half, so I'm going to do this. Maybe it's not in half. Maybe it's just this. Maybe this is what it wants. Oops. Just giving it a chance. Giving it a chance to speak for itself, to see what it wants. Okay. So again, something interesting beginning to happen here. I think I really do like the idea of making this, breaking things up a little bit more, rupturing things a little bit more. And I think that's going to come from creating darker backgrounds with what I have here. So I have that contrast and not being as precious as I'm tempted to be with these beautiful images I'm finding of the flowers. I think it's time to tear them up, to rip them up, to turn them into something completely different. Maybe even unrecognizable in the end, especially if we get up close with them. I'm going to take a risk that I'm going to wash my paintbrush off in that tea again, but let's add some black into this here. I don't often use black in my watercolors or any of my work. I'm going to squish this up a little bit just to see what effect I get again. And this is where a viewfinder would really be useful. If I had a cutout piece of almost like a paper frame. I've been a bit obsessed with those lately. And for those of you who join us in the summer at our events out in community, you will probably see why shortly when it comes to revealing our summer. I call it programming, but really it's just an opportunity to connect and create with everyone in a really interesting way and finding ways to engage the community in co-creating an experience. But there's definitely an emphasis on looking this season. Of course, the other thing I love about this is once I have all these pieces kind of laid out, played out. It's going to tell me it'll be a whole new conversation and I might rearrange everything again. But for the sake of argument, just letting it be. Let's see if we're beginning to get a picture of what this might look like. I think I need a tinier flower here. So we shall see. Overlapping circles, and similar to you, that user working with different pieces of scrapbook paper and stickers, this is a similar thing. I mean, collage really is about stickers in a way, making your own. Just looking at this to see, maybe there should be some darkness spilling out of the frame as well as light. We'll see. But this is, I think, a good enough place to leave it for now. I think everyone's getting the idea of where it's going. And I think I need to find some other pieces. Like even if I'm looking at this here, some of these hive shapes that are hiding in the background here. Even that might work really, that might give an interesting effect. I want to bring in that other really colorful, piece of coffee filter, because that's what it is that I was working on. Yeah. So this is going to be a project of mine. So look for it tomorrow, but if you don't see it tomorrow, then don't be surprised because chances are I might take a few days working on this. I'm actually really enjoying this process. And I think I need to elaborate and embellish and explore tearing some of those pretty things a little bit more And maybe that's because when it comes to caring what I need to care for, maybe it's those parts of myself that I need to care for a little bit more. Maybe I need to tend to the darker, rougher edges. Maybe I need to revisit, as I was mentioning earlier, those parts of myself that I haven't really acknowledged in a long time and thanked and shown gratitude for being there, for helping me get through. And still, maybe this little kitty cat will find a way in. Meow. Maybe right here. Who knows? Maybe. I mean, that does kind of work in a really silly way. It does kind of work. I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to spend time with it. Yeah, I'm going to spend some time with that. So I know this is a big old mess on a piece of paper here. All of these different pieces and all of the wonderful pieces that I was creating early on in the evening as I was chatting with you. Those will come into play as well. But I don't want to rush this process. And that's so much of what I do in these live streams, hopefully, is to remind you that you don't need to rush this process either, especially when it comes to tonight's theme of what I need to care for. None of that needs to be rushed. Exploring that doesn't need to be rushed. You can take your time and reflecting on that and discovering more about that every moment. Because I think that's one of the things we've realized through the conversations. It's one of the things I'm realizing tonight as we recognize and acknowledge one thing that we need to care for or want to care for, another one emerges. And we begin to pull back the layers until hopefully we reach a point when we come to the things that really, really matter, that really make a huge difference for ourselves. And maybe we get to that place by caring for all the other little things along the way. Maybe. But every once in a while, it takes sort of throwing out a mess like this to get some perspective to recognize there's a lot going on here. This will take some time to figure out, and that's okay. As long as we take that time to recognize that there is something to be cared for in the first place, I suppose, that's a really beautiful thing. And I like what Laura's pointing out about this. The little kitty cat that made its way into here. Laura says cats will go where they want. It's perfect. And I think that's a great way to wrap up this evening because cats do want to go where they want to go. And that's also a really great lesson. I need to go care for my cats now. I think that's a beautiful place to start as well. So, everyone, thank you so much for joining in, for listening. Thank you to those folks who could only drop in for a few minutes. Thank you if you were listening. Thank you if you were chatting. Thank you if you're watching later once this has been archived. If you liked what you saw or liked being a part of this, I'm going to invite you to consider supporting us on Coffee or Canada Helps if you'd like a tax receipt. But I'm not the boss of you. But everything, every little thing does help us do what we do here and makes this kind of weirdness, this weird wonderfulness possible. But aside from that, I want everyone to have a safe and restful and joyous long weekend if you are able to take one. And if you're not, please do find some time to carve out just to protect that time, to give yourself some joy, to recognize and just reflect upon what you need to care for and how worthy it is to do that caring. You are worth it. You matter. I am so glad that you're in this world. Keep on hanging in and doing that creative thing and being you. I'll see you again soon, but not next week because we're taking a break from live streams. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Bye now. Oh. Oh, there's lovely. I'm loving the list. Sorry, just lovely little lists beginning to pop up in the chat. So much to care for. Only one? That's true. Oh, my goodness. Laura's saying it did care for me this afternoon and the cats and my daughter. My goodness. Everyone, that's another lovely little thing we can do for ourselves too is make a little list. If you're having trouble, externalize it through the art, get it out. But also you can write it down. Try making a list of all the things that you did care for today. And then see what jumps out at you as something you want to do again and again and again. That's another way forward. Thank you for that, Laura. See, isn't community awesome? This is how we do. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful weekend, everyone. Take care. And I'm going to go watch a movie. as well as take care of my cats. Maybe it will be How to Train Your Dragon 3. We'll find out. Bye, everybody.